Hello and welcome. Let me just put on some music and get things set up. Yeah, we need to send the messages. Where's my Safari here? Comms. Oh no, that doesn't go to Twitter. Yeah, it does. Analysis, live stream starting now. Okay, I'll just move this here. Okay, let's just give this one moment to spread out. And I forgot to say GM in the chat. And there you go, that's said. Cool. So, welcome to the daily NFT market analysis with me, Daniel Tanner, aka Swombat, where we're looking at what's happening in the market in terms of data. And today we have some interesting data, which, like, yesterday I said that it was maybe a little bit hopeful that, like, I think we were about here, and I was like, maybe it's turning around. We don't know, but, like, let's give it another day, see where it goes. I was fearing that it would just go down and, like, continue back down. Instead, it's kind of gone up here. So that's a pretty good sign. Apologies, I might have to open the door for my cat at some point. But not only that, but what we're seeing actually is that there seems to be a sustained turnaround, well, at least like a synchronized turnaround in all the different markets there, like in all the different indices that we're tracking. Yeah, I'm going to go and open the door. 1 second. And yeah, so that's more positive than I was expecting it to be. And let's dig into the details a little bit. But, like, we're starting with an optimistic note that maybe this was the market bottom where volumes start turning around and we start to build up again towards something. Now, bear in mind, that doesn't mean that everything's going to go into bull mode right away, but it has to begin with this before it can go, up. Before it can go up a lot, it has to go up a little, and it's gone up a little. Whether it lasts or not, I don't know. And remember that the charts don't tell the future, but they do tell the present. And before the future can be good, the present needs to be slightly better than what it's been so far. So if we look at the bar charts, just to make sure we're not acting based on some distortions, we're not seeing any distortions here. It's a mix of different projects that are getting a bit more increased activity. So that's good. That's a really great sign. Here, there's a little bit more concentration. This is dead fellas, actually. And so there's a little bit more concentration, but still we can see there's, like, good distribution, good breadth of projects. Here as well, it's a mix of projects, although the rise, well, there's still a rise as per this chart. So it's not as big a rise, but it's still there. And with the women-led projects, there is a bit of concentration. This is dead fellas again. And actually, the picture is slightly less optimistic because we're missing also another project that pumped, like, quite simply because I bought into it, which is, sorry, let me move this here. It is tracked better here because, as you might recall, I've said that these old charts, the old engine doesn't track floor sweeps very well. And here I bought like 18 of these rebels, which is it still, like, why is it struggling? Hold on, I'm just checking the connections. It should be fine, but I was seeing a loading thing. Okay, I hope it's fine. Yeah, like you can check my transparency report, by the way, to see my rationale for why I bought these before going and buying stuff. Like, don't just sheep into stuff that I've bought. Like, see if the rationale works for you before you buy it. And transparency, I own now 18 of these. But yeah, so that bit is not represented here, but it would actually make the picture slightly more optimistic here. So, oops. So we're definitely seeing some increased activity around, like, across the board. if we look at the longer term picture here, I mean, there's a number of ways that you can draw this, like to show that, okay, the downward trend has been broken. This is one line that you could reasonably draw and say, okay, we've broken that trend. Now, of course, there's another line that you could draw, which is more like this. And then you could say, well, we've not broken that. So if that line matters, then yeah, I mean, that would be the next one to break, because this one has been broken. So it's not a very good straight line, but you get the idea. This one has clearly been broken. The next one is this. Like, it's very unlikely to just go like this. Like, that's not how it goes. In fact, if you look here, you can see how it typically goes. It goes like this, it goes up, like it gives us, like, keeps us in doubt. And then finally, Yuga Labs releases something and the market crashes. That's the market cycle at the moment. Is it still broadcasting? What is going on with the live stream here? Yeah, I think it is. Something's weird with the YouTube control center. I might try reloading that. Give me 1 second. Yeah, okay, still working. All good. Okay, good. Just concerned because YouTube is giving me like random stuff there, like making it look like things aren't working. I mean, yeah, anyway, I can't really do anything about that. Yeah, so, you know, on the bad news side, you know, we did make a lower low here, like, you know, historically lower low in this index, if that means anything. But it is good news that it's starting to bounce around, like bounce up. And typically, so here it took like from early April to, like, it took about a month to get to that peak. The previous one was from, I think it was around, which one was the previous one? It was like before March. So like the previous one started in, like the downturn started in 1st of February. The bottom was actually like here in early March. And then again, it took like, yeah, it took until like late March to have Yuga Labs puncture it. If we don't get Yuga Labs puncturing it as well, who knows? We might actually get something that's more like this and doesn't just immediately go back down. I don't know. I'm hoping so. Look out for Yuga Labs' upcoming news to change the trend of the market again. Hopefully they will just sit on their hands and not do anything, and the market can actually be a bit more healthy rather than just everybody aping into the latest Yuga Labs thing and draining all the liquidity from the market. So that's my hope, that Yuga Labs does nothing, so we don't get a repeat of these two. Because if it happens, I mean, it's kind of happened already, where because this was the Mutant Apes launch. So, you know, if it happens again, I'm going to start to get very suspicious here. Now, I mean, I'm already suspicious. So, yeah, there's not much more to say about this other than like, let's wait and let's see. But, you know, this is looking a bit more hopeful than it was yesterday. And I said that, you know, you'd see the signs of the recovery coming soon, in like sooner, like or first on these charts before the rest of the market catches up to that. And that is true. If you look at people looking just at the OpenSea volumes, for example, they can't really see this. They don't have this kind of chart that shows this sort of channel and how it's being broken and so on. And like they don't see this early sign. What they see, if they look at the June.xyz or June.com now it is, I think. If they look at this chart, what they see is, like, it's difficult to tell here that is it turning around or is it just bouncing around. Like, it could be, but like, it's very hard to read this chart and try and tell a trend shift here. It's much easier, I think, over here. And this kind of trend shift previously worked. It did show, like, when it hit the bottom and it started moving up, it did actually continue moving up. So I'm kind of hopeful that it's going to work this time as well. If, like, as an extra sign of an extra positive sign, there is the fact that the other indices are also like seeing some kind of upward movement. In the case of Zeneca Old, I don't think we can say it's broken a trend line yet, or like, you know, a resistance line yet, but it's on the way there. And I think if the top 10 continues going up, that will probably like start heading up as well. That would be a good confirmation sign if Zeneca Old also actually starts following up, or at least, like, you know, trending more sideways like this rather than continuing to go down. That would be a good sign that we are actually at the beginnings of recovery. But it is also possible that Zeneca Old and Zeneca New and the women-led projects will lag quite a bit behind the top 10. That's also plausible. And finally here, not finally, but like next here, Zeneca New is also still in that kind of downtrend trend line. But it's definitely, I mean, it doesn't look like it's going further beneath that bottom. So it might well start turning around as well here. So another confirmation sign. And finally, the women-led projects is probably, the index is probably the one that looks the most hopeful there, especially since it should actually be a bit higher than that because of my sweep. So because it doesn't count the sweeps at the moment, so it should be a little bit higher than that. So it's looking potentially like, well, it definitely doesn't look like it's going down anymore. At worst, it's going sideways for a while now. I mean, yeah, you could say that it's going down because of this, but yeah, so you could draw this and say that it's still going down. It's just the very short term, it seems to be bouncing up, and there is a lot of, I think, desire in the market for some kind of recovery, and like that's why all these hopium-driven derived projects are doing so well, because people really want to believe that things can get good again. They just don't believe they can get good in the existing projects, so they look for new projects that have some kind of rationale, as stupid as that rationale might be, for why it might go up again. If they see the rationale in the older projects, that would be a more positive sign, I think. It's worth having a quick look at crypto. By the way, feel free to ask any questions, as usual, in the chat. You can ask them right away. You don't need to wait for me. Why did they put this behind an extra click? Anyway, you don't need to wait for me to open the space to like go to finish the charts to ask questions. You can type them now. Depends, as you might want to watch the beginning. There was a little bit of hope in this live stream today. Crypto is still basically chilling. It's broken out of that flag pattern that we saw. That's no longer relevant. I'll be deleting it at some point soon. It's now possibly in this kind of downward flag pattern. I don't know. We'll see. Like, this is just trying to get a sense of where it might go. The trend seems to be slowly downwards, which is what we expected after this, like, slowly downwards, but no more like massive drops. Most of the capitulation happened here. Maybe there's another capitulation to come, but typically one capitulation is enough. Like, not always, but you might want to watch Ben Cohen to get more of a sense of that. Ben Cohen also does outline some scenarios where it goes down quite a lot more. So, I'm not the right person to watch for crypto analysis. But what we're seeing in terms of what's relevant to NFTs is that it's currently still chilling in a relatively narrow range. Gas was only 16 earlier today. It's now 73, so it's a little bit, it's gone up a little bit. But typically these are good conditions for NFTs to do well. They haven't before. I don't know why they haven't before, but maybe now they're actually reacting to these conditions and, going up a little bit. So I guess that's it for today. Unless there are some questions that come in, I'll put the music on so that it can draw out the questions, as it sometimes does. But if there's no questions, that's totally fine. There won't be a project review live stream today. Yeah, I know, real OPOD lines. And I didn't draw the lines, the data did. So yeah, there won't be a project review live stream today because I've got to prepare some stuff for this evening. I'm going to an event and stuff. And I'm recording a podcast as well with Gabriella Kush, which I hope to release later today. Do I think we've reached max pain? There's never a max pain. Yeah, people are still acting totally recklessly, for real. But people have been acting recklessly throughout this market, throughout the NFT market since I joined it. I don't think they ever stopped acting recklessly. I think the question is more it's not max pain for the market. The question is, have we reached sufficient pain that a lot of short-term speculators have dropped off so that things can build up again? Is one way to look at it, and maybe we have. This weekend is a long one. Do I think it will have any effects on the market? Maybe. I don't know, some weekends, people have often looked and said the weekend is when people have more time to trade and there's more trading going on. But I've also seen other times when the weekend has been just completely dead. So I'm not like I don't have a strong view as to whether weekends are better for volumes or not. They don't seem to, in my view, not that much. I have a question about the Hug. I feel like they always go through softball questions in their spaces. I haven't listened to that many of their spaces, but I think it. I mean, I think that's not just like I've listened to some spaces, and my sense is that generally, most of the questions that people ask in spaces tend to be softball questions. I've seen few people really like scrutinize a project properly in spaces. I don't know. People are maybe afraid to be accused of fudding or something. It's partly why I'm thinking, as soon as I have the time, which will have to happen after the course. So next week I'll be flying to Dubai to record a course in with NASA Academy, and after that I'm hoping that maybe to start scheduling some in-depth interviews with some founders. Yeah, I mean, like Llamaverse is like, you know, there's a lot of battle-hardened people there, and like they're tired of bullshit. But most spaces usually don't have such skeptical people, and like, yeah. So if you go to a space that's organized by the project, it is going to be generally softball questions. I mean, I did a spaces after with Meta Angels. I facilitated a space with Meta Angels after the launch, and I wasn't going to go and ask them really hard questions to go and put them on the back foot and see how they react in their spaces after their launch. It was their kind of promotional event. It was really cool. It was all about good vibes and stuff like that. That's not really where you're going to get the really like pointy information. Sometimes you get some of that information in podcast interviews, which tend to be a little bit more in depth. Like if you listen to podcast interviews with Randy Zuckerberg and stuff like that, you might get a little bit more depth there. But even there, usually the questions are very friendly, which is why I want to start doing some kind of in-depth like project founder interviews, where I go and ask them hard questions like, you know, how do you see the value going back to the, I mean, that shouldn't be a hard question, but how do you see the value going back to the NFT? And what happens, like, you know, it sounds like your entire project is dependent on this. What happens if this doesn't happen? Like, what's your plan then? You know, things like that would be, are you going to rug us? Like, I hope I'm going to filter people well enough not to ever interview somebody who's likely to rug, but who knows? Yeah. Well, it's not like, the thing is, it's not about making founders squirm. Like the way I look at it, in traditional investment, traditional startup investments, like it's become traditional somehow, investors will ask some really tough questions of people. And part of the purpose of them is often also just to see how the founders react to negative information. And they don't need to have an answer to everything. It's not about, like, you know, the founder knowing everything up front, but it's about seeing how they react to adversity, to, like, you know, difficult questions, to like how they approach them. Do they just try and deny the existence of the questions? Are they open to this kind of like contrarian information? There's a lot to be learned in just how the founder reacts to stuff. And of course there's some like tough questions to ask about, like, you know, some people will often like put, like, they'll omit important stuff from the deck, and often like savvy investors will notice those things missing from the deck and ask about them. And like, it's not a good idea to try and hide that from investors, like professional investors anyway. Yeah, I think people are just afraid to ask hard questions. Like, in general, I think it's a human thing. They want things to sound like good vibes and stuff like that. But I think there's value, and there's probably a niche for somebody asking tough questions from an investor, from a long-term investor perspective. And I'll get to it as soon as I can. Yeah, I don't know which projects I'll start with. Probably projects that I know already, because I already have the contacts and I can get the ball rolling. So I might do stuff like Meta Angels, Llamaverse, and even the Hug if I can schedule that early on. We'll see. Let's see if there were other questions there. I will not be in NFT NYC. Yeah, I'm not planning to travel too much in the near future. One, I'm not a huge fan of in-person events. I will turn up if invited, but like not if I have to travel all the way to New York. And two, I can't really do my live streams, and like, you know, I'm trying to build all this stuff, and it takes time. I can't do that if I'm going to events all the time. This is one of the lessons from the startup world, by the way. the builders who are always at all the events, you kind of have to ask yourself, when are they building? Like, if they're turning up at all, I mean, there's a kind of like, making sure your startup is visible. There's a promotional aspect of it, and if they have a team, like maybe it can be okay and stuff. But like in my case, I'm a one-man team at this point. So if I'm sitting at like NFT NYC for 3 days, I'm not building, this, not this, which is more fun and interesting to build. And I'm not scheduling interviews with founders, and I'm not, I might be building relationships with founders, and maybe that becomes really valuable at some point. But I think there's stuff to be built right now that requires me to be, let me just center that. It requires me to be, in front of my desk and ideally at home. And I have not tried broadcasting live, like live streaming away from home. I might try this. Maybe I'll try it in Dubai. I don't know. I'll take my camera and my iPad and see if I can make it work. But we'll probably just have threads when I'm in Dubai. So that's why I'm not going to NFT NYC. Anything else? Demo-driven development. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the product speaks for itself ultimately. And right now my product is this, like, these charts and the media that I create around it, and the kind of project reviews and maybe project interviews at some point. And that's not necessarily advanced. I mean, it could help build relations to be at an event, but I'd rather go to an event closer to home than NFT NYC, as hyped as it might be. So I always kind of feel lost in those big events. Like, they're not really my thing. Cool. I'll put the music back on. And unless one last question comes in, we'll call this a day. 22 minutes in, a decent length. Any changes in the indexes lately? Did you not? Oh, right. No, I've not been generating it recently because I've been busy building this stuff, and there was various things that were broken about it. So the only thing that changed is I removed the Zuki from the top 10 and replaced it with crypto brokers, which was the next one down the list. So once this is done properly, we'll have also a better index, because this includes already all the collections are in there. Everything is in there. Now, obviously, most of them are not synced at the moment, and that's going to take a while to sync all of them. But it turns out you don't need to sync all of them every day, all the time, because the top 1,000 collections are like the only ones you need to sync regularly, basically. And so, yeah, it's easier than it would be if you had to sync, like, there's about 15,000 collections in this list at the moment. And if I had to sync all of them every 4 hours, that would be a bit of a disaster. Okay. And yeah, once I've got this going, I'll do a relevance index again. All right, cool. Have a wonderful day. Take care. Sorry there's no project review today, just too busy today. And I'll see you tomorrow for another live stream and another project review. So, yeah, great. Have a lovely day. Take care. Bye-bye.